Great. So a new episode of OpenMSP podcast today. We have Enzo Zenuni with us from ITX Solution. Enzo, thank you for joining.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you.
So when I kind of prepared for this podcast, I saw multiple interesting things about the way you built your business. And one of the things was that you're obviously an MSP, but you also have your own telecommunication company, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background was originally in telecom. I used to work for a local carrier here in Orlando, Florida, and I started reselling service originally. And then as I was doing that, we started getting demand for more hands-on, basically on the MSP side. But we were selling a lot of hosted voice, and we decided to build our own hosted voice solution. So when we went that route, that's the telecommunication side of it, which is our VoIP that's in-house that we built. And that's been working extremely well just because you have a lot more control over anything we need to do with a client. We can do it right away. We're not having to ask somebody. We're not having to put in a ticket to change something on their account. We can immediately make changes, and that's what's really made it successful for us. But basically, I took all the years I had working at these other carriers and kind of put that together and decided to launch my own business for it.
So you started from the telecom and then moved to the MSP, or it was the other way around?
Yeah, I started in telecom. Long story short, I started in telecommunications. I was working for a major carrier here. And what ended up happening was I had a very large deal that I had brought in for a large size client. It was a 100 gig internet connection that'll go between two cities. It was technically supposed to be like a dark fiber. They call it an EPL. And that deal got taken away from me. When that deal got taken away, I ended up leaving the company. I thought that was unfair and decided to start my own business, but I was just reselling. Basically, I was reselling hosted voice solutions and internet circuits. We had too many issues with the other VoIP providers, like your major ones like RingCentral or Net2 Phone, Nextiva. So I ended up having to sell service, but also go on site and do fixes and properly configure their domain because the companies weren't doing it right. They were just shutting the phone and call it a day. And I didn't want to let my recommendation fall short. So that's what caused us to go ahead and open up our own hosted voice solution, launch our own platform. And once we did that, that's where we got back basically into becoming our own telecom provider.
My first job in high tech was also in a VoIP company called Delta 3. And I remember there were a bunch of open source stuff that you can actually do with voice over IP. It was starting to becoming commoditized, right? Did you have your first experience with open source through this VoIP business?
Actually, no, it was through building our own platform for ITX. That's really when I played with some open source stuff before, but not to this scale. With what we have for VoIP, we purchase a license or the software from a bigger company that allows us to have full control of everything from the back end to the front end to whatever we need to do. But the getting into open source was when we started building our own platform for ITX to get away from Kaseya, basically.
So what's kind of was the beginning of that, like moving from service provider to an actual software provider or software producer?
Well, first of all, it was scary. Like, you don't know what you're setting up right, or you don't know the full ins and outs of it. So you think you have it right, and then you get hit with a bug later on and you go and fix it. But as time goes on, you just become more and more confident. And the second, if anything were to break, you know exactly where to go and to get it fixed. Especially now, and with having AI, it just makes things incredibly efficient, and a lot less bugs, and you can fix things extremely fast.
What was the moment? Okay, so it's a pretty big decision to start building your own system. What was the moment that, like you said, okay, I'm done with this shit. Like I'm tired of this vendor or that vendor, and made you like go on that route, like building your own tools?
Yeah, so actually, I remember the exact moment when this happened. I get a client that calls in. They're asking for support, and we use basically Kaseya's entire tool set. And I try to go into the desktop with their VSA tool, and just kept crashing and crashing and crashing. And then it would open and it would be very slow. And I'm sitting there frustrated while I'm handling the client. And I'm thinking, I'm paying thousands of dollars a month to Kaseya. The tools don't work half the time. The support sometimes is non-existent. And the only calls we get back is sales calls for them to upsell us. And I'm sitting there and I just have a moment of epiphany. I go, all right, I've played around with AI. I said, let me see what I can put together using AI and open source solutions and if I could make something better. So it was, I think that night, I decided I stayed up till almost 4 o'clock in the morning, just playing around, building a simple platform. And then now it's become this massive platform where we can, remote into our clients' machines. We can do bulk scripting, ticketing, inventory management, billing, even doing things like our EDR and XDR defense. There's proposal tool, client management, like CRM system. So it's a full in-house solution now. And I was actually telling one of the guys yesterday, as we were working on the platform, I go, man, when we first started, it was just like this really basic, ugly thing. And now it's taken a whole life of its own. And it has made us incredibly efficient. And the part that's mind boggling is less than a tenth of the price for 10 times the output from going from Kaseya to this, and that's been huge.
And how much time does your team spend in actually maintaining and building new features to it? Like, do you calculate these expenses as what you said before, like 1/10 of the?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really good question. So I was the one who built the whole thing, put it all together. The team primarily uses it and does testing on it, but for me, it's funny. My life's a little interesting. For me, it's more of a passion as well, just to prove a point and get something better on the market. Because when you look at it, the big companies, there's only a handful of them, and a lot of them are worth a few $1 billion, if not a few $100 million. And I just feel like the products are not very well built out, or they're extremely expensive. So for me, yes, it's also a job, but it's also a passion project, just to prove a point and create something I think works better, is smoother, more cost effective. It's funny because I drive a Tesla as well, right? And the autopilot, when I'm sitting in traffic, I put on autopilot, I pull out the laptop and I start working on the platform. So I consider some of the time not really time that is lost, because it's time sitting in traffic working on the platform, which I probably spend most of my time in. So yeah, if I consider it, it'd probably be a big upfront cost, but now the maintenance is not that much, to be honest with you. We get someone, whether it's a client or an employee, that says, hey, it would be great to have this feature here. A few lines, a few messages to Claude, and boom, feature's been added, and then you're done. You're not doing much of the coding.
What you said about the Tesla thing is kind of reminded me of our previous episode where Ed was saying that he sits with his wife for dinner with the computer, and he's like building things into his kind of implementation of what you're building, but he's more on the like corporate IT side of things. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And what's your plan with this tool? Did you release it already as an open source tool, or you're planning on productizing it, a long-term vision?
I'm still debating. I think probably going open source with it and see what the community could do with it and add on to it. From our point of view, it serves everything we need and more. And I think it would be also pretty impactful. I think I reached out to you once if you wanted to collaborate on it and just take a look at what we've built. Obviously, in a private session, you can see everything and kind of get ideas back and forth. But I've never done something at this scale before in terms of building a platform or an application. I was quite surprised I even pulled it off. It did take me about 9 months, just planning, designing, getting everything right, getting all the integrations. I mean, there's 20, you guys probably have a lot more, but I think we have about 23, 24 API integrations into it. But I'm not sure. I think the first thought was just to go open source and see what the community does with it, and then kind of go from there.
That's interesting. What do you think? So you mentioned before, like all these big companies, they have billions of dollars in run rate, and they're valued at like, now it's got a bit lower because of everything that is happening with AI, but they're valued at like 3, 4, 5x on their run rate. The good ones, the not so good ones, maybe 1 or 2. But what do you think will happen with those companies?
My honest opinion is a lot of them are going to go bankrupt. There's no question about it. Seeing what you can do with AI, and I mean, to prove a really good point, my son is 8 years old. He built this little tiny office next to mine right here. It's kind of a little bit of a mess, but he got a little laptop, keyboard, mouse, and the desk phone. And I told him, hey, you want to build your first application? He had no idea how to program. And he built his own version of Flappy Bird. And then he built a Mario racing game, right? If an 8-year-old child can do that, someone with the experience in IT, I think, can do so much more, hence what I've been able to do. And that's one of the reasons why I thought just to put it on as an open source solution rather than going out there and flat out selling it, because everybody else can be able to build their own. And to climb such a hill to only just fall right down, I feel doesn't make sense. So I think going open source gives me the opportunity to improve what I currently have through other people and focus really on my core business, which is taking care of our customers, providing our IT services, our network build outs, our own voice solution and things like that. Those are things that I don't really foresee AI doing anything about. There's too much hands-on work, and you're talking about having robots out in the field to do anything really. So that I don't see going anywhere, at least hopefully in the next 10, 15 years, and maybe I'd be retired by then. But software, I think, is going to get easily replaced, because I have a friend of mine, he's out of Ohio, and he has an MSP company out there, and he was using Evernote to just keep track of client notes and things like that. And they were paying about $80, $90 a month. And he says, randomly out of the blue, they ended up getting a rate adjustment, and their bill was now $1,800. They spent less than a day and built their own version of it. And he's like, now we just canceled Evernote. So this is going to happen to a lot of these software companies. I foresee is that they're eventually going to get out, I think, fall out of business, because a lot of people are going to be able to build their own solutions.
I tend to agree. And I think that, like, if building a Note app is a day, like, but building a RMM tool or kind of client server and something that has, privilege issues and needs to be trusted by the device it's getting executed upon, it's a bit harder. But I think that the AI the coding abilities of the AI are moving so much faster than anyone thought, that even that is commoditizing much, much faster. And what you're saying about the software is exactly kind of like the thesis behind what we started. We're like, if software is going to get commoditized, if software effectively is going to be sold at infra cost, because that's what you're saying, right? Like, you're just hosting the software and you're paying only for the service that runs it. What's going to be measured is less on the what's being sold, but on the outcomes, right? Like, are your customers happy with whatever is running behind the scene, which just doesn't really matter. How do you see kind of the difference in the way your user is going to consume IT services in the future?
I think big time. And by users, are you meaning like our clients or our employees?
End users, your clients.
Yeah, so I think big time. And actually, yesterday was a really good example of that. So we have a client who's an accounting firm, and they use a specific application to do their taxes. Now, they're not very tech savvy at all. They're good at doing their job, doing taxes, but using a computer is, fifth nature to them. So they have to connect to shared folders. They have multiple sites. They host the application at each site, because each site kind of runs independently. So a group of people need to be able to access the application from each of their site and access RDP and the shared folders. And for them, it was like, what do you mean? I have to go to run and type this IP address. The shortcut's there. Sometimes it disappears. So within, I'd say maybe 3 hours, I was able to build an executable software that basically lists all their sites, is connected to Tailscale between all the sites together. It shows all the locations. It shows the shared folder they can open, the RDP, and launches the application. So all with one click, it'll authenticate them, open the folder RDP and log them in, or open up the application. There's no credentials that they have to put in place. It runs locally on the machine, so it's secured. And all they need is the exe file and Tailscale, and that's it. And the thing that they came back was like, this is magical. This literally feels like magic. I just click it and it opens. It just works. So being able to...
Do you think that the next stage for forward-thinking MSPs like you would be just telling those companies like this, or maybe kind of lower requirement software, just tell them, listen, I'm gonna write the tax software for you, and it's gonna be modern.
I definitely see something like that happening, because they were asking us if we could build a portal for them. But just how fast you can build applications and test it, and it actually self-test itself too. So you're really not doing much of the work. You're just giving it a good description and letting it run on its own, and then play with it basically once it's ready. But to be able to do solutions like this that in the past maybe would have taken weeks, if not months, you can do in a few hours. In a few hours, really meaning AI working a few hours, you may be putting in a total of 30 minutes to an hour of work time into it. So that's, to me, I think is going to be a game changer for end users coming from MSPs that really are wanting to think outside the box and give, different solutions that don't really exist, where you're having to be creative and create those solutions for the client.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting timing because if you look at it from cost structure perspective, right? Like if you look at an MSP spends a lot of money on resale, right? Like you resell other people's tools. So if you're starting to displace the vendors that you're reselling, which is directly associated with your cost of goods sold, the impact of open source and on custom built solutions is probably the highest in the industry. Because if you'll compare this finance company, they might have one or two software, which is operational expenses, right? It's not necessarily the cost of goods sold. So they kind of capped in the way they can increase their profit margin. But for businesses like you, if you eliminate all of your resold tool that you have and it's by the seats that you're selling to your users, you can reach to a point where you move the business from a normal MSP might have 30, 40, 50% gross margin. But if you eliminate the reselling cost, plus if you add extensive amount of automation and AI, you can reach to like maybe double that, maybe reach to 25, even 15%.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think because of what happens now is when you're having to resell these services, as your revenue is going up, it's chasing your margin. But when you're building your own solution, you're creating a wedge between the two. So your cost, I think we calculated our cost per agent was like a couple cents compared to being, I think, I don't know, $8 per agent with everything tagged onto it. And even the vulnerability scanning tools, we're actually working on building our own. So we're going to be building our own devices that has all the tools in place. We just put it on site for the client or ship it to them. They plug it in, we remote it, hit start, let it run for a week, and then we get a full report after. But I think it's going to go from commercialized software to where open source is going to lift up really high in terms of the usage that open source is going to get. And even if you look at the open source platform, if you look at companies like Wazuh, for example, right, they're used by major companies like Cisco and other big vendors. And so you already see the power of open source. It's just not, I don't think it's as publicized because no one's marketing open source. Everyone's marketing, these monetized softwares by the bigger companies.
Did your users ever have concerns or questions about the fact that you're building your own tooling or you're using open source behind the scene?
So the customers that we talk to and we let them know, say, hey, yeah, we built our own platform. We can do this and this. They actually were really intrigued by it and found it to be more fascinating, knowing that, okay, now they feel even more comfortable knowing that they have a more of an intelligent team behind them that's capable of doing things like this, as opposed to, okay, yeah, let me fix your printer for you or do this. Like, okay, my IT company can actually build me custom software that makes my day-to-day easier.
But even when it comes to like the things that you run for the IT ops, like for the RMM or EDR or things like that, there were no kind of concerns or questions around how secure it is, do I trust it, or things of that nature?
Not from the client side. It was more so from our side, questioning that. The thing is, a lot of the clients don't really think about too many of that stuff because and the reason why is they're trusting you. So that's why it's our due diligence to make sure that it is secure and that we pen test it and put it through the boxing ring, make sure it comes out alive. And that's where also Claude helps coming in, for example, in different AI models where you can test certain things, have it run scans for you. And for example, when we built our RMM, we installed Wazuh on it, let it run scans, got the scans back, fix what needed to be fixed, ran it again, feed it through a Claude, have Claude come back with a report, and then we run a script on it, what needs to change, what ports needs to close or open, what we need to enable, disable, just to make sure it's more secure. And then it's funny, after doing all that, you see Wazuh becoming very quiet on that machine. You don't see the reports coming in as much anymore. It's coming back much cleaner.
That's very cool. Yeah, it's like we also kind of starting to experiment with that with like self-feeding agents, one agent running a scan, open a PR, then another agent comes in, scan the PR, check if it's good. If it's good, it's merging it. And I think a lot of it is already happening in the large scale for the frontier LLM models like Claude and OpenAI. I think much of their code is like being just written over and over. Like bugs are getting fixed automatically, but also new features are just being written for the vast majority of for the large portion of the code that is associated with it, they're just being built almost completely with AI. You just have a system architect or something that just take and look at the code and that's it. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool that like the validation process that that you guys are running. I think that's it's super interesting to see how many MSPs. I wouldn't say that most of the MSPs that we're talking to are like on this level of building their own tools and also providing custom software solutions for their users. But I think it's starting to become a trend. Like this starting to become a trend, and I think that as fast as people like you will open source their software, you're just going to see other MSPs taking like just take whatever you built and building more on top of it and more and more and more. And this is kind of what we're also trying to do with OpenFrame. But I think we're going to see a lot of changes from profit margin perspective, not only with the software, also with the AI labor. So yeah, I think it's super cool what you guys are building. Once you're gonna publish it, we definitely be more than happy to put it on OpenMSP, the directory, so other people can find it if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely. The goal is probably sometime towards the end of the year, because we've been fine tuning a lot of smaller components. I have OCD, so if the just a slight pixel looks off, I want to figure out why. Got to fix it. Well, this is being CPU rendered. Okay, let's make sure this is being GPU rendered now, so it has a smoother animation. So a lot of attention to detail has been going into it, but it has tons of tools. Even actually pulls news articles based on any CVE alerts that are coming out or recent attacks, and it'll scan. Then Wazuh, it'll pull Wazuh to see if it found any of those as well, and then give you alerts and creating a ticket. Say, hey, this device has been found with this popular new CVE that or attack that's been coming out. Go and resolve it.
What's the main modules right now?
So tactical RMM is the one that we're using for the RMM component. Wazuh, we do use WebRoot for the EDR part. A few of the AI models, so you have Claude in there, which goes through OpenRod or ChatGPT. Kind of the AI triage tool that we built into it will basically kind of have a conversation between two top tier models in a way to have a conference to make sure they both agree on something rather than just printing off a script and wrecking something. On top of that, we're using, what else do we have in there? There's a bunch of stuff like map APIs just to render pretty maps where we can locate our devices on there. But a lot of the rest of the stuff, like the ticketing portal, is completely in-house. We designed it, built it in-house. The notifications, email alerts that come with that is our own design. The billing is our own. Stripe is integrated with that. There's Perplexity.
So the entire PSA is yours?
The entire PSA, yeah. So the only thing that's really a third-party use in there, in terms of a hardcore tool, is going to be Tactical RMM, Wazuh, and WebRoot. But everything else is completely ours.
That's super cool to see this type of stuff being built. And what do you guys use? Do you guys have any sort of unified logging or anything that can aggregate logs from multiple places and find anomalies automatically or things of that nature?
For unified logins, in terms of like our clients, like 365 or things, or like their firewall router, that we don't have anything for that yet. That's another tool that we're looking at, just because that is kind of a pain point that we currently have. We are integrating 365 into our platform. So when you go into the organization itself, you'll see a lot of things. You'll see obviously notes, contacts, but you'll see their network, which is integrated with Unify. So you can see if it's online, offline, if a device goes offline, if the site goes offline, it generates a ticket which alerts the client and us. You can go to the 365 and then you can see all their users and just do basic things like create a user, remove a user, create a directory, reset password, redo MFA, things like that. But I'm trying to work on something that can create a single login for everything. But there's also the security concern on that.
So what's coming up on the next few releases of the tool? Like what are you guys being cooking?
Right now, it's pretty polished up, but the next things that really we'll be doing is finishing the Microsoft component, and that's really it. If I show you the tool, you'll see why there's not really anything big new coming next, just because there's already so much baked into it. We have our own credential manager on there as well, and we can create two-factor authentication codes with it, the TOTPs. There's a built-in mini Slack that we designed. It's in-house that allows us to communicate with our clients, create channels. For example, if we have company ABC, we can create channels on there. We do use Slack internally, but for the client to us communication, we'll use that tool. We even created our own version of FaceTime. So this one's kind of cool. And the reason why is sometimes you need to get on a video call with a client, right? You have iPhone, they have an Android. They have iPhone, the tech has an Android, and you have a lot of incompatibilities. Download this app, register, set up your account. We got rid of all that. You just go to a very short link. We give the client a 6-digit code. They type in the code and they don't see us, but we see their camera, and it automatically results to their back camera. So that way they can point it. And if they're pointing it at something, let's say this is the camera view, I can tap anywhere on the camera and it'll show a blue orb blinking every time I click it. And so that way the client knows what I'm talking about. You're not like, oh no, it's right there on the upper right, and they're going up. No, you click it and then they'll see the orb blinking right there. And then you can take screenshots and save it, attach it to the ticket. That's been a really helpful tool, just because sometimes a lot of times you tend to want to get on a video call and it's just complicated because there's all these cross-platform stuff. But with this, go to the link, 6-digit code, done. No registration, no nothing. So that's been extremely helpful.
What if you can like maybe record like a 30 seconds or 1 minute or whatever works for you video of the platform, and we're gonna attach it to this we're gonna add it to this podcast, and also can share it on OpenMSP as part of the podcast repurposing. That sounds super interesting and super cool. Sounds like you're kind of like in leg. It's not beta, second or third leg of development processes, because you're already kind of went ahead and built things that doesn't even exist in today's, remote control, or even, I don't know how to call it, but the remote assistance that involves the video and all of that. That's really, really cool.
Yeah. It's been a game changer. It's actually made our team extremely efficient. We're seeing more tickets, more notes being put into tickets, even just the ticket aspect as well. The whole idea is building it to look and operate like an operating system. Right. So there's a ton of right-click menu options throughout the whole platform. But I can definitely do a video and get something over to you. The other part too is thinking in shortest steps possible. Right. And I like when I'm building something, I like to think as the lazy person. If someone's asking me to do this, how can I do this with the least amount of clicks? How do I get there with the least amount of clicks? So an issue we were running into was tickets not being updated in the time they need to be updated, because they got to go back here, do this or that, and flip back and forth. So there's little mini modules to everything. There's a mini module to tickets. There's a mini module to the RMM that sits at the very top of the bar. So if they're viewing client note details, for example, and they really don't want to leave that, they just click the little mini module. It slides up. They find the ticket, add the note really quick, submit, and then they go right back to where they were without leaving it. So it allows them to update things very, very fast. And that's been allowing us to get notes updated really quickly, resolving tickets, just there's a lot of also hidden features. I probably might have even forgotten some of them just because I've added so many into there, but they're in documentation. But there's a ton of features just to make the way that our staff works really, really efficient and easy for them.
Do you have some numbers of the outcomes that this change has cost the business? Maybe more customers per technician or faster resolution for tickets. Like, do you have any numbers you can share?
Right now, I don't have them yet. That's the next thing that I want to compare and contrast. But from the seat of the pants feel, I'm a big car enthusiast, so we always say the seat of the pants performance. What we've noticed, and everybody's noticed it, is how more efficient we're able to resolve issues for clients. Just jump in there, fix problems, remote in. We get a lot from clients like, "Whoa, we already remoted in?" That's always the response. Like, that was fast, because they'll call in, and when they do call in, we can go into the organization extremely fast because it all lives in one hub, but it is federated. So if, in the event of an attack, we can shut down components or shut down everything completely, and there's nothing in the portal. It's just a skeleton at that point. So there's that security aspect of it, but it just all operates together very cohesively. So supporting clients has been a breeze. We were using Autotask before for the PSA and ticketing part. That for me was a nightmare. Clients weren't putting in tickets. because they found it to be complicated. I didn't want to do tickets myself. I was telling the team, this is on you guys. I was like, I hated going into Autotask just because it just, there's too much going on and it's too complicated and it's not straightforward. Where with this, it's, you almost have fun putting in tickets just also because the platform looks pretty and it's so easy to use. And the other component that we're going to add, actually, that you did mention, I just haven't played around with it too much, is the RPBX system is built into the portal as well. It is currently disabled, but you can go on there, add domains, add users and whatnot, but it's to link our main account to the system with the user. So whoever answers a phone call, it'll pop open that client's profile.
Very cool. Super good. Yeah, so I think I'm really excited to watch the demo and see, and I'm pretty much sure that a lot of the viewers and the listeners of this podcast will also wanna take a look. It's been a pleasure for me to have this discussion. Sounds like super cool execution and initiative. Anything you would like to close to or add before we finish?
No, I mean, thank you for having me on here. And, you know, I think what you guys are doing is really cool. And you've been an inspiration. I found you guys throughout my journey in building this. And I was like, there's got to be something that's open source, got to be something. And then, you know, you guys pop up and I was like, oh, this is so cool. It's, it almost in a way started becoming a guide for us into what we're building here. So in a sense, we're working in parallel as you guys are building yours and we're building ours. You guys have been helpful in becoming that guide because you have a list of all the open source stuff that you've tested and tried and it's true. So it allows us to kind of work faster and have a cleaner build too on top of it. So thank you guys for what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy that we could be of a help, and thanks again for this insightful podcast. And if anyone wants to contact Enzo after this call, feel free to do so. He's part of OpenMSP Slack community. Thank you so much, Enzo.
Thank you.